Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today we're diving deep into the life of Princess Charlene, a woman who once captivated the international sports stage and then stepped into the high-pressured world of monarchy. No matter which rumors you've heard, there's far more to her story than meets the eye. Charlene Lynette Wittstock was born on January 25th, 1978 in Bulawayo, Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe. Her birth country was undergoing radical changes. Rhodesia's transition to the new Zimbabwe in 1980 brought upheaval to many families. Charlene's parents, Michael and Lynette Wittstock, were looking for stability and opportunity as the political landscape shifted. In the early 1980s, the family relocated to South Africa, hoping for a fresh start. Charlene was just a small child, wide-eyed and surrounded by a diverse tapestry of cultures and languages. Growing up, she witnessed not only the remnants of apartheid, but also the country's move toward a new era. South Africa was dynamic, intense, hopeful, and turbulent, factors that shaped her worldview early on. Charlene's family wasn't particularly affluent, but they were tight-knit and supportive. Her father worked in sales and later ran a small business, while her mother once competed as a diver before turning to coach young athletes. As some say, the aquatic talent in Charlene's blood may have been inherited from her mother's side. From a young age, Charlene was more comfortable in water than on land. She seemed to float effortlessly through the pool. When coaches first noticed her fluid, powerful strokes, they recognized she had extraordinary potential. Swimming gave Charlene a sense of purpose, and soon it would become her ticket to the world beyond her immediate surroundings. During her teenage years in Benoni, an area on the East Rand outside Johannesburg, she honed her competitive edge at local swim clubs. Her daily life was a rigorous cycle of early morning practice, school, more practice, and the occasional break to do homework or catch her breath. South Africa's sporting culture at the time was intense. The country was eager to rejoin international competitions after years of isolation due to apartheid-era sanctions. That fervor gave rise to a generation of athletes who threw themselves wholeheartedly into training. In that mix of determination and high hopes, Charlene carved out a name for herself. She was a quiet but commanding presence, with a tall, graceful frame and a disciplined focus that impressed coaches. By the late 1990s, Charlene Wittstock had become one of South Africa's top swimmers. She specialized in backstroke and freestyle. She earned medals in national competitions, eventually gaining a spot on the South African Olympic team for the 2000 Sydney Games. While her performance in Sydney didn't yield a podium finish, it placed her firmly on the international stage. She was part of a 4x100 medley relay team that finished fifth, an achievement that for many was overshadowed by the star athletes, who claimed gold or silver. But for Charlene, it was a pivotal moment. Sydney taught her about the thrill of representing her country, and also about the loneliness and pressure that come with striving to be the best. Meanwhile, across the ocean, the Mediterranean microstate of Monaco was in the throes of transformation. The House of Grimaldi had a long history laced with scandal, glamour, and heartbreak. Prince Rainier III, husband to the late Hollywood icon Grace Kelly, had worked tirelessly to transform Monaco from a sleepy European enclave into a symbol of wealth and high living. Their son, Prince Albert II, inherited not just the throne, but also the legacy of blending old-world tradition with modern celebrity culture. By the early 2000s, Prince Albert was renowned as a sports enthusiast. He participated in bobsledding at multiple Winter Olympics. He was known to maintain a discreet profile compared to some royalty, but he was still a bachelor, widely regarded as one of Europe's most eligible royal men. Fate, or perhaps coincidence, would bring Charlene and Albert together in 2000 at a swim meet in Monaco. Albert was hosting the Mare Nostrum competition, and Charlene was there to compete. Their first encounter was polite and uneventful by most accounts, a handshake, a few words, and each went their separate ways. But something about Charlene lingered in the prince's mind. She was different from the usual European aristocratic circle. She was an athlete with a reserved, composed nature. No flashy pretenses, just straightforward confidence, tempered by humility. It would be another few years before they met again, but that initial spark planted a seed. A lesser-known tale from Charlene's early sports career involves an injury that nearly derailed her dreams. Around 2001, she suffered a shoulder injury that forced her to take time off. This injury, though seldom discussed in detail, was a source of profound anxiety. She had dedicated her entire youth to the pursuit of excellence in swimming. Would she lose it all because of physical setbacks? During that period, she found comfort in the supportive words of fellow swimmers, including close friends and even coaches from outside her main training circle. One of them, a retired South African swimmer, reportedly told her, "If you lose your stroke, find it in your heartbeat." That cryptic line stuck with her, suggesting that her drive to compete came from something deeper than muscle or technique. It was about passion and identity. By 2005, Charlene's perseverance paid off. She qualified again for significant international meets, and in that same year, she crossed paths with Prince Albert in a more relaxed setting. He invited her to Monaco for the Grand Prix, one of the world's most glamorous sporting events. Suddenly, her life was no longer confined to swimming pools and training camps. She was introduced to a rarefied circle of European aristocrats, business magnates, and A-list celebrities who all flocked to Monaco for the race weekend. Onlookers began to notice the friendly rapport between Charlene and Albert. Some described her as unfazed by the glitz around her. She maintained the same serene composure she had in the pool, which intrigued people in Albert's orbit. Yet, behind the scenes, Charlene was still battling shoulder pain and deciding whether to retire from professional swimming. It wasn't until 2006 that Charlene officially announced her retirement from competitive swimming, shortly after she tried to qualify for the 2008 Beijing Olympics, but couldn't meet the required times. The disappointment was heavy, but there was also a sense of relief. An athlete's career can be punishing, especially when injuries accumulate. With retirement came a new chapter, the possibility of a life that didn't revolve around an intense training schedule. She spent more time in Monaco, appearing at events alongside Prince Albert. Rumors escalated. Was she just his latest girlfriend, or was there something more serious brewing? Friends of Charlene have noted how bizarre and overwhelming it was to make that transition from athlete to royal companion. One friend recalled that during an early formal dinner, Charlene seemed genuinely unsure of which utensils to use for each course. The minor etiquette missteps were apparently endearing to Albert, who also came across as more down-to-earth than one might expect from a prince. Still, the path to the palace was no fairy tale skip. The Monegasque royal family had a complicated history with outsiders. Prince Albert's mother, Grace Kelly, was beloved worldwide, but faced her own challenges, transitioning from Hollywood star to European princess decades earlier. The parallels weren't lost on the media, and many quickly labeled Charlene the next Grace Kelly. This comparison would both elevate her and cast a long shadow over her life. After about 4 years of dating and occasional public appearances that fueled excitement and speculation, Prince Albert and Charlene announced their engagement in June 2010. Immediately, tabloids began calling her a reluctant bride, pointing to her subdued demeanor in photos. Others lauded her as a graceful addition to the Grimaldi dynasty. praising her philanthropic interests and potential to modernize the image of Monaco's monarchy. Within days, though, the rumor mill churned up darker stories. Some publications allege that Charlene attempted to flee Monaco just before the wedding, only to be stopped at the airport and have her passport confiscated. The palace swiftly denied these rumors as ugly gossip, but the story gained traction and still resurfaces in media coverage to this day. While we may never know the complete truth behind those rumors, the wedding itself in July 2011 did little to extinguish the speculation. Charlene's teary eyes during the ceremony were caught on camera and replayed countless times, stirring questions. Were they tears of joy, or was she overwhelmed by regret and anxiety? A moment that stands out in many viewers' memories is when Charlene, in her intricately detailed Giorgio Armani dress, appeared to brush away a tear while Albert looked on. The official narrative was that she was overcome by emotion on her wedding day. Some in the press latched onto a more dramatic story. This was a forced marriage, or at least one undertaken under immense pressure. Whichever account you believe, the wedding was undeniably grand, complete with celebrity guests like Karl Lagerfeld and classic Monegasque pomp. Tens of thousands lined the streets of the tiny principality to celebrate their new princess. Then came the daily realities of being Princess Charlene of Monaco. If you think adjusting to public scrutiny as a top athlete is tough, imagine the round-the-clock watch of palace life, where every outfit, every gesture, every absence is noted and dissected. Suddenly, everything Charlene did was a matter of national interest. Even the local Monegasque press, which tends to be respectful of royal privacy, had to report on her official appearances, philanthropic endeavors, and personal style. She became a patron of various charities focused on children, sports, and ocean conservation, causes she has continued to champion. But behind the glamorous appearances and philanthropic trips, rumors of unhappiness persisted. One underreported story from around this time involves Charlene's private coping mechanisms. A former aide who spoke on condition of anonymity alleged that Charlene sometimes spent hours alone in the palace's indoor pool, using swimming as her emotional reset. The water, once her competitive battlefield, became her sanctuary. This quiet detail humanizes her, a princess who, amid unrelenting scrutiny, found relief in the very element that shaped her youth. Whether or not she felt trapped, as headlines screamed, she could still find a private realm of calm where the water hushed the clamor of palace life. About 3 years into their marriage, Charlene and Albert welcomed twins in December 2014, Princess Gabriella and Prince Jacques. This marked a joyous occasion for Monaco, especially given the significance of an heir to the Grimaldi line. Jacques, as the male twin, holds the direct line of succession, while Gabriella is second. The birth of royal twins was an international sensation. For Charlene, motherhood introduced a whole new dimension to her role. She has often spoken about her love for her children and her desire to protect them. Despite persistent rumors that she might flee Monaco altogether, she remained for her family, forging ahead with her duties. Yet controversies have only grown louder over time. One involves Prince Albert's paternity suits from previous relationships, which surfaced intermittently. He confirmed fathering 2 children out of wedlock, though these children are not in the line of succession. The swirling stories of more potential illegitimate heirs cast a shadow over Charlene's early years as princess. Critics questioned whether she was aware of all these details before marriage, or if she discovered them later. The palace remained tight-lipped, while Charlene rarely addressed these matters publicly, except to say that her focus remained on her own children and her responsibilities. Another point of contention has been her seemingly long absences from Monaco. In 2021, Charlene traveled to South Africa for what was initially framed as a short visit for conservation work focusing on rhinoceros poaching. However, she ended up staying for several months. Official statements cited a severe ear, nose, and throat infection that prevented her from flying. She missed important events in Monaco, including the 2021 Grand Prix and the couple's 10th wedding anniversary. Rumors erupted. Was she gravely ill, or was it an orchestrated scenario to live apart from Albert? Some in the media described her as a runaway bride once again, even though she was not fleeing a wedding, but allegedly recovering from surgeries. Photos of Charlene looking gaunt and frail emerged, fueling public concern. When she finally returned to Monaco in November 2021, she soon left for a treatment facility elsewhere in Europe, which the palace explained as necessary for further recovery. This prolonged period away from the principality raised an avalanche of questions about her well-being and the stability of her marriage. Despite all these swirling controversies, there are glimpses of the princess's real life that remain underreported and overshadowed by headline gossip. For instance, Charlene has quietly supported multiple charities that rarely grab the front page. One little-known project is her involvement with learn-to-swim programs for children in underprivileged communities worldwide. Through the Princess Charlene of Monaco Foundation, she focuses on water safety and drowning prevention, issues close to her heart. She spearheaded campaigns in countries like Burkina Faso and Senegal, demonstrating a genuine commitment to improving lives. These philanthropic efforts reveal a side of Charlene that is proactive and caring, a stark contrast to the bleak prisoner-princess narrative. To understand why the rumors of her imprisonment or unhappiness persist, we have to glance at Monaco's unique pressures. As a constitutional monarchy with a ruling prince, Monaco thrives on tourism, luxury brands, and gambling revenues. The princely family is not just ceremonial, they're intimately tied to the city-state's brand and economic allure. Princess Charlene, as the consort of the reigning prince, is expected to fulfill ceremonial duties, host dignitaries, and uphold the Grimaldi image of glamour and continuity. People have noticed that Charlene is far less comfortable in this role compared to her predecessors, such as the famously radiant Princess Grace. Charlene's reserved personality is often mistaken for coldness or sadness. Those who've interacted with her note she can be quite warm and genuine, but she's also inherently shy and cautious, traits that don't necessarily translate to public sparkle. One rarely discussed detail is how Charlene's mental health might factor into her demeanor. While the palace has never released a formal statement on her psychological well-being, the extended period of isolation in 2021 and 2022 prompted speculation about depression or anxiety. Some close to the royal circle have hinted that she battled with low moods after giving birth to twins, a possibility that resonates with many mothers worldwide, especially those under the magnifying glass. Whether postpartum challenges or unrelenting public expectation contributed, the outcome is the same. She remains under intense pressure to look and act a certain way, even when she may feel far from that ideal on the inside. And then there are the deep-seated conspiracies suggesting that she's legally bound to stay in Monaco or that Albert wields an undue amount of control over her. To be clear, there is no concrete evidence that she's physically barred from leaving. But the intangible constraints of duty, motherhood, and fear of scandal could indeed make one feel trapped. If Charlene were to separate or divorce from Albert, it would inevitably create a seismic shift in the principality. The effect on Monaco's carefully curated public image could be considerable. That doesn't mean it's impossible. It just highlights how enormous the stakes are. She's part of a system where centuries of tradition intersect with modern tabloid culture, and extricating herself from that system isn't as simple as booking a flight. When considering these controversies, it's helpful to compare how the public reacted when Princess Grace faced her own challenges decades earlier. Grace Kelly was a Hollywood icon who gave up a thriving film career to marry Prince Rainier III. She also found aspects of palace life stifling at times. Yet the narrative around Grace Kelly was largely romanticized. Today we see Charlene, an accomplished athlete who gave up her sports career, confronting many of the same tensions. However, we're in the internet era, a digital fishbowl that intensifies every rumor. There's no curtain behind which royals can fully hide, especially in a place like Monaco, whose entire identity thrives on drama and celebrity. Thus, Charlene remains under the microscope in a way that no Monegasque princess has been before. The story of Charlene Wittstock, now Princess Charlene of Monaco, reminds us that even in a world of privilege, life can be painfully human. We see a woman who soared to athletic excellence, faced injuries that threatened her career, and navigated a whirlwind romance that turned her into global royalty. At every turn, she faced a set of expectations and constraints that most of us can't imagine. Whether you view her as a glamorous figure or an involuntary symbol of Monaco's complex power structures, the reality likely lies somewhere in the middle. She has used her platform to champion charitable causes, especially those close to her heart. But overshadowing her philanthropic work is a barrage of speculation about her emotional state, her marriage, and her freedom. One little-known quote that has floated around from someone who once worked at the palace is haunting in its simplicity. The staffer claims Charlene was overheard saying, "If I lose myself, who am I in this story?" It may be apocryphal, but if it's genuine, it speaks volumes about her predicament. Is the real Charlene just a princess, or is she still the determined swimmer from Benoni who used to find solace in the water? It's a question that resonates with anyone who's had to compromise parts of their identity for a role they find themselves thrust into. Over time, Charlene's image in the public eye has become a symbol of what monarchy can look like in the 21st century. Archaic tradition colliding with the unrelenting scrutiny of social media. She has inadvertently highlighted the mental and emotional strains that come with marrying into royalty, topics that younger royals across Europe and the UK have also started addressing more openly. While it's unlikely that the Grimaldi family will spill every secret of their private life, they can't fully wall off the rumor mill either. Charlene remains at the center of it, at times seemingly a fragile figure, at other times quietly steadfast. Now let's consider the story's deeper meaning. Princess Charlene's narrative is not just about one woman in a gilded cage. It's about the disparity between public perception and private reality. It's about how someone can be envied for their wealth and status, yet still struggle profoundly behind closed doors. It's about how illusions of freedom and fairy tale endings can mask complex emotional and psychological bonds. There's also a poignant lesson in empathy here. Before we buy into sensational headlines, it's worth remembering that these are real individuals with real feelings. As for the significance, we shouldn't underestimate Monaco's role in global culture. This tiny principality has long been a microcosm of old money tradition, fused with New World celebrity. It's the home of the prestigious Monte Carlo Casino and the Formula One Grand Prix, a playground for the ultra-wealthy. The royal family is a living symbol of Monaco's brand. Charlene's apparent discomfort or reluctance to fully embrace that brand stands in sharp contrast to what many assume royalty should be: eternally beaming, glamorous, and serene. In stepping out of that mold, whether by choice or by circumstance, she inadvertently becomes a more relatable figure. She underscores the human cost that underlies the fantasy of monarchy. As we arrive at the conclusion, consider this. Charlene's quiet dignity, her commitment to her children and her charities, and her resilience through illness and speculation all point to someone who refuses to be neatly typecast. She's not just the prisoner princess. She's also the swimmer who never forgot the rush of the pool, the mother protecting her twins from the harsh glare of publicity, the woman who might be grappling with personal loss or identity issues in ways we can only speculate about. Her story remains unfinished, shifting with each new chapter in her life. And perhaps that's why the world can't look away. No matter how you slice it, Princess Charlene's life has been anything but ordinary. From the sun-drenched pools of South Africa to the opulent corridors of Monaco's royal palace, her journey exemplifies the collision of personal dreams and powerful institutions. She stands at a crossroad where tradition meets modernity, where intense public scrutiny meets private longing. It's a tension that may never fully resolve, but it's also precisely what makes her story so compelling. As you close out this exploration, take a moment to reflect on the complexities beneath the headlines. If nothing else, remember that behind every public figure, especially one swathed in rumors of captivity, there's a multifaceted human being wrestling with choices, sacrifices, and hopes just like everyone else. And that's the final note we'll leave you with. The next time you catch a headline about Princess Charlene of Monaco, remember that a quick snapshot rarely captures the whole picture. Her eyes in that moment might reflect more than we can guess. The memory of an Olympic dream, the strain of royal life, the love for her children, and the weight of a role she never quite expected. There's strength in her story, even in its ambiguities. Maybe that's what keeps the world watching. And maybe, just maybe, it's also what keeps her going. Thank you for sharing this journey. Whether you came for the royal intrigue, the athletic feats, or the human dimension, I hope you found a richer perspective on Princess Charlene than the sensational headlines typically provide. Sometimes the fairy tale is more layered than we imagine, and perhaps that's the truest story of all. If you like this video, hit that thumbs up, let us know your thoughts in the comments section, and subscribe so you won't miss out on future uploads. See you next time.